Hello everyone, it's Becky here and welcome back to my channel and welcome back to new video and welcome to first wrap up of 2022, because today I'm going to do my January wrap up and I must say it was absolutely great month, because if you remember a couple weeks ago or even couple months I mentioned that I actually wanted to read 2 books during January because I did not think I would be able to read more due my moving to Scotland, but at the end I managed to read 4 books, which is great and I'm very happy. And I also thought I would like to do something new this time, because if you've been following me for a while, maybe you noticed that I used to do wrap-up videos after a couple months together, and I never also did sort of like TBR videos, but now I decided I would like to try something different and I would like to do a wrap-up after each month and do kind of 2 videos in one, so then at the end of every video I would also mention my TBR for upcoming month, because now I started to plan my reading a little bit more and I also have some buddy reads coming, so I just thought it would be lovely to give you a little update of the books which I read and also the books I'm going to read. So hopefully you will enjoy it, and now without further ado, let's just speak about the books I read in January. The first book I read in January is called The Vanishing Act of Esme, Lennox, and this is a book which was a group read for Past and Future Readathon, and I was very excited about reading this book because it was supposed to be set in Scotland, so I immediately jumped on it, but I was not reading it with other people in the same time as the readathon was happening, because since I was moving at the time I was kind of reading it on my own and I did not participate in any discussions or anything, and I was very excited as I just said, but I must say I was a little bit disappointed because I think I was expecting something more from the book. But first let me tell you what is the book about. The main character is Iris, who suddenly finds out that her grandmother had a sister no one knew about, and this sister used to be locked for 60 years in asylum, and suddenly Iris finds herself in a position when she needs to take care of this new relative she never met before, she never knew about, and the story follows what is actually gonna happen and how she's gonna handle it, what is she gonna do. Also it opens the question, who is this Esme, this sister of her grandmother, why was she in the asylum in the first place, is she dangerous, and what's gonna happen. And meanwhile we also followed another storyline which is about the relationship Iris is having, because they are quite interesting, but I'm not gonna tell you anything more about it because I don't want to spoil anything. In the book there are several time periods changing and there is quite a lot of flashback scenes as well as different point of views, and you know how much I really like this when reading. I do enjoy books which have different time periods and the time periods changing and non-linear structure, and usually I don't really have a problem to keep up with it, but I must say that with this book I find it a little bit confusing, and very often I realize that I don't really know who is talking right now or what is actually going on, which I don't think that would be you know, the matter of me not paying attention very much, but I just simply did not enjoy the writing style that much, I would say. Also one thing that kind of did not sit with me very well was I felt that the story was written really on kind of like surface and it did not go very much into details, so then later on when there were some major things happening in story or there were some surprises coming, which I would also like to point out that I felt that the book was quite predictable at many times, but when there were some surprises coming or something big happening, I just find out that I really don't care, because I did not build any sort of like special relationships to characters or to the story because of the way it was written. At least for me it did not work out very well, but then on the other hand I would like to point out that what I really enjoy was basically the whole idea and the story, because it really focuses on family relationship, it focuses on past and present and how your decision basically all the consequences which are caused through your decisions you made in the past. And also one important theme is, I would say, is that what happens when the society and people are looking weirdly at people who are a little bit different than them, and that leads to different decisions which affects life of those people and not always in a positive way. And I thought it was a very lovely topic to discover a little more and also to read about, but other than that I thought that I would enjoy a little bit more this book. But please let me know if you participated in Past and Future Readathon, because I know that many people did, and if you read this book, let me know please your opinion, whether you like it maybe more than I did, or if you did not like it, or just your thoughts about the book, because I would like to talk to you about it a little bit more. So that was the first book I finished in January, and the second book is The Great Gatsby. Maybe you remember that I mentioned a couple times before that Great Gatsby is a book I would like to reread, but the funny thing is that when I was reading the book now, I know for sure that I read it before because we also had it as one of the must-reads in high school, but when reading it now I felt like I had no recollection of the story when I was reading it before, if that makes sense, and I knew that what is the story about because I also seen the movie adaptation from 2013 with Leonardo DiCaprio and I enjoyed that one, and I really wanted to read the story again, but now now, as I mentioned, it just felt like I was reading it for the first time. And I don't think that it's very necessary to introduce the book to you because it's very well known classic, but just very briefly, basically we follow Nick Carraway, who is also a narrator of the book, and he comes to New York to start his business. Soon after, he meets Daisy Buchanan, who is his relative, and later on he also meets Jay Gatsby, who is his neighbor. Jay Gatsby is basically a multimillionaire who very often conducts different parties at his house, but he never really attends them. And later on we discover that Jay Gatsby and Daisy used to have a relationship, but then due to war they got separated, and meanwhile Daisy married Tom Buchanan. And now the story focuses on Daisy's and Gatsby's relationship because Gatsby is still in love with her and she doesn't really know what to do with it. And this whole story is mostly focused on them and how this relationship develops and what's gonna happen if there is going to be some relationship in the first place, because also Tom is having affairs on his own meanwhile. So very interesting, but also this book is very interesting commentary on society and especially like people who are disgustingly rich and how they act towards other people and towards themselves. And I found it really interesting to read about because there were also some other major incidents happening, but I'm not going to be talking about them because I don't want to spoil it for you. So this is just me about little story. And now to the review. So I had it as audiobook, which was narrated by Jake Gyllenhaal, so very lovely as you can imagine. And I would also highly recommend you to try the audiobook because I think it was like maybe 4 hours or something. It really wasn't long. And I did enjoy listening to it, but I must say that in general I think that this book is slightly overrated. Because I read a couple other books from Francis Scott Fitzgerald and I enjoyed those as well, and I always loved his writing style because I think he's very talented when it comes to writing vivid descriptions of the whole basically time period and then what is happening. And what I really appreciate is that it's really actions that kind of moves the story rather than plain dialogues, because sometimes I feel that books tends to just explain everything through dialogues very easily, but here I felt that it was lovely described through action and what were characters doing, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And I also did enjoy quite a lot to read about the theme, basically how the world sees us as opposed to who we really are, because sometimes things are not as they seem they are. If you know what I mean, you will if you read the story. And I really enjoyed this. And I also must say that, as I mentioned before, I seen the movie adaptation and I remember seeing that and I was very surprised how like over dramatic it seems to me, and I almost did not enjoy it because of that. And I do like the work of Baz Luhrmann because he's the one who directed the movie, and he does have very specific style when it comes to editing and also I would say pacing in the movies, especially for example Moulin Rouge. I mean, I'm still saying it's one of the best edited movies there ever was, but also for example Australia with Nicole Kidman, you can see their very specific way how the story was edited and also how the pacing of the story was done. And I felt that in Great Gatsby it was kind of like too much, and it was really almost like a stage play and people were just too like overacting to my taste. But then when reading a book I realized that actually the book was written in that way, so that was very interesting discovery I did. And I would also like to maybe do a comparison between film and the book. Maybe you can let me know if you would like to see something like that. After Great Gatsby, I finished my third book, which was called The Meaning in the Making by Sean Tucker, and I'm not gonna be talking too much about this book because, as you know, I already did the full review video about this book, which I will link to the description down below if you haven't seen it. What I will say very, very briefly is that I absolutely love this book. It's a non-fiction book about art and creativity and why people have this massive urge to create things, and also what does it mean, like different points of view of the creative work and different stages when you're trying to, you know, be creative and create something. And I just found it very, very interesting. And yeah, that's all what I'm gonna say. Highly, highly recommend this to everyone who loves to do creative things, whatever it is. And you can go and watch my other video. Right, and moving to the last book I read in January is this one called How to Stop Time by Matt Haig. And I have absolutely lovely story tied up to this book because maybe if you've been following me on the Instagram you noticed it there already, but when I found this book in charity shop in Sterling when I went to a little trip, I found a little note in the book. And I just absolutely love when things like this happen because yeah, my sentimental heart is just very happy. And I would like to know if you ever found something like this in the books, or maybe you've written there something yourself and then took it to charity shop, because I did this actually, was it I think in my first year when I finished uni and I had to leave my student accommodation. During that time I gathered a couple books and then I decided to bring them to charity shop, and I would write little note on the sticky paper like here, but for some reason I've written it in Slovak. I don't know why, but I wrote there like, if you are from Slovakia and found this book, well, enjoy, or something like that. But thinking now about how tiny the town was where I used to live, I doubt there was anyone from Slovakia. I mean, there used to be a couple of Polish people, but not anyone from Slovakia. So, but anyway, back to the book. So, How to Stop Time by Matt Haig. I already read Midnight Library by Matt Haig, which is behind me right there. It's not mine, but it's there. And I did enjoy Midnight Library, and I also enjoyed this book quite a lot, but there were still a couple of things which I was like, eh. But anyway, let me tell you what the story is about. It's a story of a man who is not aging as other people do, but he is actually centuries old. He is over 400 years old. And during this story we explore his whole life and whole journey from the point he discovered he has this special condition which prevents him from aging as other people, and what actually causes there and where his life led from this point. At the beginning of the story, the main character Tom comes back to London to start a new life as a history teacher. At school he meets Camille, who is another teacher at the school, and he grows affection towards her. However, because of his condition and also the promise he gave to Albatross Society, he cannot fall in love. Albatross Society is a group of people who are like Tom with this special health condition, and one rule they all need to follow is to not fall in love, because obviously it makes everything complicated, especially when after every 8 years they need to move to different place and start a new life, because other people would notice them not changing. I must say I really did enjoy this book. There were a couple things which were beautifully written and I even underlined them and just written down as I usually do, but then there were also a couple things which I did not enjoy that much, and there were, for example, dialogues. There were several scenes in which dialogues were not the greatest, and it kind of made me cringe, which I really cannot stand in the books. And then also sometimes I had a problem to kind of relate to characters' reactions and how the characters acted, because for example there was a scene when Tom, our main character, was basically threatened with knife by one person he knew and his group of friends, and the way he reacted to this situation, I was like, well, I don't think he would react this way. One thing I would like to point out though is that also there are quite a lot of trigger warnings, especially when it comes to death, violence, and even like suicidal thoughts, so that's something to be aware of. But other than that, I would recommend you to read this book. I did enjoy it, but yeah, there were just some minor things which prevent me from giving it like 5 stars, but other than that, it was really lovely read. Right, so those were all the books I read in January. Please let me know if you read any of these books, what you thought of them, and maybe if there is a book which you haven't read yet but you are interested now after this review. I would really love to know. And now very briefly I would love to tell you about my reads in February. I am doing 2 buddy reads and I'm very excited about it. The first one is the book called The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. I am reading this with lovely Jolene from Book One Adventure Girl, as well as with V from the Sassy Library Fox, and we are having lovely group chat over on Instagram, and I'm very enjoying it. So far I read first 5 chapters, because we said we will be reading 5 chapters per week. It's a story of a man who comes back to his hometown to attend funeral, and that obviously brings a lot of memories and past with him. So far from what I gathered from those 5 chapters is that we got introduced to different characters, and I do like the story, but I would say that I kind of forgot what kind of author Neil Gaiman is, that it's not just literature, but it's kind of like with the fantasy and different aspects, which I completely forgot about. So when I was reading the book, I'm like, right, there is something more happening. So it was very interesting, and I would really like to know how the story will develop, because so far I think that I'm starting to realize that Neil Gaiman might not be the author for me. I already read The Stardust, and despite absolutely loving the film, I did not enjoy the book very much, and now when reading this after 5 chapters, I'm like, I don't know if this is my cup of tea. So we'll see. My second buddy read is called The Nature of Witches, which I'm reading with Rosika from The Midnight Reader, and I must say that by the time I'm recording this, I have not started reading the book yet, but I would like to do it tonight. It's a book which I already mentioned in one of my previous videos when I was talking about witchy books, and it's a very interesting one because our main character is basically a witch whose spells and magic is tied up to different seasons during the year, so there is always something different happening to her during summer, during spring, during winter, and during autumn, and I'm very interested to read this because I wanted to read this for ages. And the third book I'm currently reading is actually audiobook called Bigger Than Us by Fern Cotton. I have approximately 1 hour left, but I don't want to say too much about the book because I would like to finish it first. But it's a book about like spirituality and the things which are bigger than us. So Fern Cotton speaks a lot about different... Oh, someone woke up. Fern Cotton speaks a lot about different forms of meditation and praying and how you can basically reach something like some higher power, which I think is interesting, but in the same time I don't feel like it's something new to me, especially because since, you know, I'm a religious person, so I've been growing up with these things and kind of praying daily. So, but it's very interesting to listen to, and I love Fern Cotton and especially Happy Place podcast, so I'm always happy to listen to her books because it feels more like a podcast than actual book. But I will tell you more about it in February wrap-up, and those are 3 books I'm currently reading, and I'm hoping that I could fit 1 more book in my February reading, but we'll see how it goes. So far I don't know what book would that be, but because my flatmates has absolutely lovely library, I think I would just borrow something from them. So that's it, my friends. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know if you read any of the books I just mentioned. Someone just woke up here and tried to get something from underneath the door, so yes, I'm coming. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, and I hope you did, and you're still considering to subscribe, please do so because it will be lovely to have you here, and I will be more than happy to chat with you in the comments about anything. So take care, and I will see you soon again. Bye! Yes. No! Sibyl, leave it. Alright, we are done.